strategies and tips to support our students. Any questions? Yes?
I have one question about the Peaceful Bus Initiative. Have we tried to baseline the actual climate on the bus by maybe surveying the drivers and seeing where their challenge points are, and then seeing if the initiatives actually are having incremental improvements or anything like that?
So that's a really good question, because last year when we were starting this, and Ms. Mammon, you can jump in if you want to help me with this answer, but last year when we started this, we actually sort of informally tracked the bus incident reports that we received from bus drivers. The challenge with that is that some bus drivers are more consistent with writing those bus incident reports than others. So it wasn't exactly the best data source necessarily, but we did sort of track them to see how things sort of went after we did a Peaceful Bus. And what we noticed is, again, kind of informally, that the number of bus incidents did seem to decrease after we had done a Peaceful Bus initiative, and then they spiked up again. They always spike up again in the winter, like right before the holidays when everyone just kind of needs a break. It's just the way it is. And then they petered out again for a little while, and then they spiked up again. And somewhere in there, we had another Peaceful Bus meeting. So it was not, I would not say that it is the best data source, but we did sort of try to informally track bus incidents in relation to Peaceful Bus. We do have opportunities to speak with the bus drivers. Again, sometimes they contact us through email or through the bus incident reports. I can just unplug that actually.
Can I jump into
and
the
also,
bus? Sorry.
I was going to say, and also the bus driver breakfast is a nice opportunity for us to talk with them. Is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say, at Peaceful Bus, the bus drivers are there and a part of the conversation.
Right.
So with one of the rooms that I observed, they were actually, the bus driver spoke up and said, here's a concern I have, here's a wrapper that was on the bus from this morning. Not only are there food allergies that we shouldn't be eating on the bus, but it's also a safety concern that someone could choke or something could happen. So they were able to talk about some things they'd observed and things that they wanted the students to work on.
How often do you do?
Peaceful Bus?
Yeah.
Last year we did it twice. This year we were thinking about doing it a little bit more, 3 or 4 times, right?
We're going to do 2 of the really large Peaceful Bus assemblies, with each group, but we're also going to be going on the bus, I think it's the beginning of next month, where we're going to have, basically there's a mentor who is assigned with a couple of mentors per bus, but at least one will get on the bus when they arrive at school, go through the expectations again, kind of as a check-in and a reminder. So that's something new that we're doing this year. We may do that more frequently to kind of just check in and remind people about what they're supposed to be doing. One thing that you can't really calculate, it's not quantifiable, but the students who, the 6th graders, when they're with the younger students for the Peaceful Bus, take on a leadership role. And also there are people that go to the mentor if they're having a problem on the bus. So that's the connection we're looking for, is having an adult that they can talk to about it, in addition to the bus driver or the parents.
Right, and there's something to be said. I mean, when you see the 6th graders with those little kindergartners and 1st graders, I mean, when they get on the bus, I think they get on the bus and they blow past them and go to the back of the bus because they're the cool 6th graders and that's where they get to sit now. And having them, I think, together face to face to sort of remember, like, oh, there's a little person who's 5 years old who maybe doesn't want to hear me say mean things to another child. So I think that too was something that was really valuable for some of the 6th graders. When they were walking up the hall with some of them, they were like, a few of the 6th graders saw me and they were like, Mrs. Sherman, they're so small. And I'm like, I know, do you remember? Do you remember when you were that small? So that I think was really helpful for them too to see. So, not quantifiable. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the social emotional learning PD. And was there anything that came out of that that you thought was like useful or promising in terms of practices, programs that might apply to our school?
Mm-hmm. So this was more of a presentation sort of about the whole notion of social emotional learning and sort of the thinking behind what happens in the brain when trauma happens to children, and how we as educators sort of need to be aware of that and learn about strategies and ways that we can address it. I mean, I would say, and I would have to really refer to the staff for this, but I would say that the biggest piece of feedback that I got was, that they really appreciated the opportunity to have the conversation and do some learning around it, and B, that they would like even more. It would be the big pieces of feedback that I got. And I think that as a professional development, as a PDEC committee, it is one of the topics that we have talked about sort of hitting throughout the year. Some of it through our in-house folks, through our responsive classroom work and like our peaceful bus work, and some of it with hopefully some more outside people coming in and doing some more presentations. Any more questions?
I just want to thank you because the peaceful bus thing, I'm just happy that we're doing more and more of it, and that this has been an issue for a long time. I'm happy to see us moving in the right direction, and I'm thrilled to hear about professional development on social, emotional, and health aspects. Thank you.
I will say the Safe School Climate
Right.
the committee is really energized and taking it seriously, looking for as many ways as possible to change the climate of the school for the children, the staff, and that includes the bus, the overall climate.
And I have to give kudos, and I should have when I said it, but Kayla Widmeyer and Maria De Palma were the two who really took on the peaceful bus and ran with it. They looped in a lot of other adults to help, but in terms of the organizing of it and the sharing out of the information and the emails and even that letter that you saw, they did a lot of like work for it. So really big kudos to both of them for doing all of that work. It was a tremendous impact on our student population. Last questions?
Any other questions?
No, I'll get my computer and switch gears.
Switch gears.
Switch gears.
She's still up.
Good. Switching gears. I'm still up.
Still,
I think I'm okay. I will let you know. Sorry, I should have brought everything up initially. Apologies. Sorry. I think I'm good. I just need to plug in. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Go back over there now. So good evening, everybody, again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of our Smarter Balanced Assessment results. So this presentation is just an overall opportunity to share overall results of the Smarter Balanced results. We are not going to share information about our accountability plan. That will come out in a couple of months, which is very similar to previous years. And these results, just as a reminder, are taken off of assessments that were given last May. So the thing that always confuses me is when I'm talking about third graders, I'm actually talking about current fourth graders. So just keep that in mind. And also our next generation science standards results arrived recently, so those are not included in this assessment. Those were given to all fifth graders, current sixth graders, last May. So those results are not included in this. So this is just an overview slide about what the Smarter Balanced Assessment is. I like to remind everyone that there used to be an ELA performance task, and that was eliminated a couple of years ago, but there is still a math performance task. And I also like to mention that it is a computer adaptive test, which means that the testing questions change depending on how students respond to them. So we often will report out on achievement levels, and we'll mention especially levels 3 and 4, which is our students who are either meeting or exceeding the achievement standard. And although that is very valuable information, and that is information that I will be sharing with you tonight, it's really important to also think about a vertical scale score. The vertical scale score is just a more precise unit of measure in order to track our students' data. So I will actually be sharing out vertical scale scores with you again tonight. And the example that I like to give here is that, for example, the student in grade 4 in mathematics, the level 3 range is 2485 to 2548, and the level 4 range is 2549 to 2659. So the total range for levels 3 and 4 in terms of a scale score is from 2485 to 2659, which is over 150 point spread. So it's just another example of how reporting out level 3 and 4, while that's valuable and important, we're also going to be talking about vertical scale scores. Just a reminder about the areas that are tested in the English Language Arts assessment. There are 4 different areas assessed. Let me know if I'm going too quick. I know you all got this ahead of time, but if I'm going too fast, you can tell me to slow down. I always like to show a sample question just because looking at what a student sees on their screen, I think, is really, really valuable. The questions for ELA are on the right-hand side of the screen and the passage is on the left. The students, in order to answer this question, have to scroll through on the left-hand side of their screen. They'll have to scroll all the way from the start of the question all the way to the bottom, from the start of the passage to the bottom of the passage. So just that alone is some effort for them. And then the questions are always on the right-hand side. And a lot of times there's a couple of questions associated with each passage. So unless they look at all the questions, they won't know what they're answering until they get to it. In this sample, there's 2 different types of questions that students have to answer. And this is just one quick snapshot. There's other kinds of questions that they answer. But on this one, the question number 10, they have to click within that paragraph in order to find the correct definition of the word fake from the text. And then for question number 11, they have to do a short answer text. So again, just the complexity of the questions that our students are faced with. It's important to see. These are the results for our English Language Arts students. As you can see, the left-hand side is the student scoring at level 3 and above, and the right-hand side is the average vertical scale score. And I just shared back 3 years worth of data. One of the things to look at is the areas highlighted in pink, orange, and blue. So that is what's called a rough cohort. Those are not necessarily all the exact same students, but it's our students moving from grade 3 to grade 4 to grade 5. So that's the diagonal. And you'll notice if you look at those diagonals that our numbers generally speaking, show a steady increase, especially in the vertical scale score numbers.
Can you, just as a new board member, can you tell me more about the 2016 to 2017 year? Because it kind of jumps out at you. Is there a big change in the test, or are you unaware? Okay.
No, that's just it's always interesting because every cohort of students is different, and the needs within every cohort of students is different. Are you talking about the grade 6 students at 90.4?
Yeah. Like, did we have some kind of big change in the 6th grade? Or did the test change?
Nope.
It was just a very good
It was
class.
just it was just that group of kids.
So one thing to keep in mind is because we're one school, this is based on an N of, each grade is based on an N of 100.
Right.
About 100 kids.
Exactly.
Right? And so amazingly, if we get 5 kids don't show up for a test, it can alter, as opposed to a school district where they're averaging 2,000 kids across 10 schools. It's just, we definitely see a little more fluctuation, and we can definitely see what I would say is a good class, a class that didn't perform as well.
And we were talking about that actually as a Schoolwide Data team at the beginning of the year. We were talking about how, 1 or 2 kids could raise or lower our percentage because of where they land or how they score, just because of our sample size.
And second follow-up question from what Steve said. If a student's absent, then it's out, or do they have a chance to make it up?
Nope, they have a chance. Oh no, the makeups go for quite a while. I'm laughing because I feel sometimes like I'm still testing and it's like June 15th, which is an exaggeration. Don't worry, that's not true. But we give them many opportunities to make up. So how we structure the assessments is that we typically will do, we only test for about an hour a day just to prevent fatigue. So the Smarter Balanced assessments are untimed. So kids have as long as they need to finish them. And what we typically do is we'll do language arts first, and we'll test for language arts for a day or 2, and then usually there's like a day break. And sometimes we'll do a makeup then to do that part of ELA, and sometimes we'll just give them a day break, and then we'll start math, and then we'll do all the makeups at the end. So it sort of depends on the schedule and the structure. Some grade levels have things like field trips, and they can't test on one day, so they test on another day. But we have a number of makeup days, and I start running reports daily, sometimes multiple times a day. So I track all the students who participated and did not finish or did not even start, sort of where they land.
Okay.
You're welcome. So this is a graphic representation of our ELA performance level. This is all of our students thrown into one graph. The blue and the green represent the students at level 3 and 4.
Lisa, are these all the students, or is it general ed, or special?
Everybody.
So everyone all
Everybody
together?
smushed into one graph.
Okay.
Yep, all the kids. Grades, all the grades and all the students. Yep, so the whole school. Grades 3 through 6.
So, just to follow up on a question that made me think, so a special ed child takes the same test as a non-special ed child, and that data is conglomerated together, okay?
Mhm.
Other than
That
1%.
Right, other than, we have very, very, very few students who take the alternate assessment, which is reported out differently, but we don't have very many students who, I think.
It's 1% across the entire state. So
Right.
it's very extreme cases that they need this accommodation. And there's strict criteria to be eligible for that.
Is that
And it is a-
1% top and 1% bottom, or just 1% bottom?
1% of the overall population that needs an alternate assessment. So they have much more significant needs. So one of the criteria is there has to be a cognitive deficit. They have to have difficulties with, I'm trying to think, what was it? Life skills adaptability. And then there's another third criteria. So 3 criteria you have to meet to be able to be eligible.
That's a PPT decision. So this is the, again, same information, but now I broke it out by grade level with grade 3 at the top and grade 6 at the bottom. And then this is all of the students together again, but by year. So you can sort of see our blues and greens and our reds and yellows and where we're landing across years. Again, blues and greens being exceeded and met, and reds and yellows being not met and approaching.
So this is a snapshot of just this past year, but grade 4 seems to stand out as doing quite well in the exceeded
Yeah,
portion. So I'm just curious whether that is the case across the different years.
to look at grade 4.
Yeah, because they seem to be doing quite well, whatever it is.
So there they are, 72.8. So if you, so now you're looking this way.
Yeah.
So 72.8, 78%, and 80%. So you're looking at right now at that 80%.
I think that tracks pretty, fifth grade is the same way.
This is combining met and exceeded, right? So-
Yeah, but this is too. This is level 3 and 4 combined.
Right, that's what I mean, you're not gonna see the blue separated, the
That's true, you're right.
exceeded.
I'm sorry.
But yeah,
you're right,
it
yes.
doesn't.
Okay, if I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is similar to English language arts. These are the major skill areas that are assessed in mathematics.
It is,
I'm not crazy, right?
yeah,
My doctor told me I should go to an eye doctor, but my goodness.
Still okay.
yeah, definitely.
It's not me, thank you.
Quick, give me a pound.
Everyone take an aspirin real fast.
This is a sample math question. For you and me. This is a sample math question. On these questions, I like to point out not just what the question is asking, but more importantly, all of the tools that the students need to engage in. Just even that fraction tool at the very bottom for some of those kids is, what is that and how do I navigate that? And, to click into it, you have to click into it, and then you have to click into the numerator, and then you have to type your answer, and then click in the divider. It's a lot for little people sometimes, so. And these are our math results. So you're looking at a similar graphic as you were looking at ELA. Again, you're looking at cohorts going diagonal, cohorts going diagonal, grade levels going across.
So I can't help but notice, and I know we have to be careful with the limited data points and extrapolating too much, but when you take a look, fifth grade seems to stand out as not doing as well.
Yeah,
But
we've noticed that as well.
Yeah, so I don't know, like if you push back even further with more data points, do we also see the same trend?
Yeah, so we've looked at fifth grade as a school together, and we've looked at it with our math specialists and with our fifth grade team. And one of the things that we think a lot about in fifth grade math is, well, a few things. First of all, fifth grade was the grade level who just most recently got their math curriculum work with our ACES math consultant. So they just finished that work last year to sort of look at all of their units of study, align it with Common Core standards, look at their assessments, align that, make sure that we were doing a vertical with fourth and sixth. So they just got that work last year, first of all. Second of all, the standards, if you look at the mathematical standards from third to fourth to fifth to sixth, jumping from fourth to fifth is quite a jump, and then another jump from fifth to sixth. So there is quite a jump when you get into fifth grade. Those are two things.
And is it across the state, fifth grade, is it a lower?
Yeah. Cheryl was just mentioning that across the state, fifth grade typically does not do as well. I don't have those numbers to prove that to you, but I could always provide that for you in the future if you'd like.
It's interesting to hear that was the first curriculum last year, and that's the first year that you guys were sort of in line with the other schools.
I know.
It's really nice.
Yeah, they were, I will say that they were, I'm hoping that will continue, but I will say that last year as they were doing the work, they were trying to do the work for the unit they were coming up to. So it was a lot of sort of doing the work and then teaching it right after, so, which is challenging in and of itself, but. This is, again, all of our students smushed together for math. Blue and green is exceeded and met. And here it is by grade level.
Your sixth grade stands out, and I'm wondering if it's because in sixth grade there's the tiered leveling, right, where you have an advanced group, so that the exceeds, I don't know if it's helping the exceeds category, or maybe there's something else going on.
You technically have just 4 more kids who are better at math, right? It's such a small sample.
So we don't extrapolate out our students who land in different classes. So I can't tell you that all the kids that are in that class are the ones that are, I mean, it can't be all of them. There has to be others in other classes as well. So we have not extrapolated that out. So it could be one factor that plays into it. There could be other factors as well. And this is our math by years. So this is a graphic of our English language arts and math assessment data, and this is looking at where we land within our district reference group and where we land within the state. So our numbers are catching up to where we were about 2 years ago.
And did we take like corrective action in 2018 that has moved us in this way, or is it just sometimes?
Yeah, so in a minute I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did last year that we're going to continue this year. We did do a couple of different things.
One question, can you go back? So that number represents the percent of students who were at or above, 3 or above?
Mm-hmm. Our overall results.
And that, so the DIRG number is?
Of the 21 schools in our DIRG, we're 6th
okay.
in ELA,
Okay.
and we're
8 out of 21.
Okay.
of the
All right.
21 schools.
Okay.
And of the 206 schools and districts in Connecticut, we're number 20 for ELA and 21 for math.
And that is just based on the percentage.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do they do other quirky breakdowns? There's other ways you can analyze that data set. But is this what they can do, or do they do other stuff?
So the
Yeah, this
data
one goes
that.
to the newspaper.
How much are the realtors?
So there's a couple of different data sources that we get it from. This information is coming from what's public, because I don't have access to like Trumbull's individual Like I can see like Trumbull individual, like there's only so many layers that I can get into as a public user, not as an employee of Trumbull Public Schools. As an employee of Woodbridge Public Schools, I can get deeper into our data than I could into, you know, Trumbull's data. I just happened to pick Trumbull. It has nothing to do with the fact that you.
As I would say, we like to say for people who are newer on the board, that really, like, this is one little piece of assessment data that we use. We focus a lot on it because it's paid state reported and stuff, but in terms of, you know, what we use as metrics for how the school's doing and stuff, this is just one little dot in time. And there's a lot more that goes into the daily assessments and what teachers use to, you know, to review things.
Is the 21 schools in the DIRG, are they fixed or have they changed? Like, do people fall in and out of the DIRG over the years or no?
They changed a little bit, but not
I feel like they
dramatically.
changed like before my first year on the board,
Yeah.
right? It was like in like 2000, was that when it was 2005? They switched DIRGs. Yeah, they did a big switch, but since then, I don't think.
Okay, so in
anything's
this
changed.
data, it's all the same towns,
Yep.
year to year.
This is. Here's our DIRG. I happen to have it in case you want to see. We're DIRG B. So this was a question I know the board had expressed some interest in, so I was trying to gather some data for you around growth rate. This data, unlike the data that I was showing you previously, this is actually a matched cohort. So that means that we know that it is the same student from year to year to year to year. So if a student moves in or if a student moves out, they would not be accounted in this data. This is kind of like the golden standard data. So it's all the same kids we know. So there's two different ways that we can look at this, and the state looks at achievement data, which is what I was showing you in previous slides, and the achievement data that I was sharing with you was just a one-time snapshot measurement of a student's academic performance. Growth data is about a change in the achievement scores from the same student between 2 or more points in time. So multiple years, same student. So the state looks at two different data points off of the growth rate. The first, off of the growth data, I'm sorry. The first is the growth rate. The growth rate is a binary measure. It's either you hit your target or you didn't. Every student, based on their vertical scale score, is assigned a target that they are expected to achieve in both ELA and math. Off of that target, their growth rate is if they hit it or if they didn't hit it. So if a child gets a scale score of 2653, I'm making up these numbers, and their growth rate is supposed to be 71 points. If they hit 71 points, they get a 1. If they don't hit 71 points, they get a 0. So that's what the growth rate is. Okay? Even if they hit 70 points, they still don't get it. They have to hit their target.
So the target is, oh, sorry.
So the next year, so a third grader takes the test,
Right.
they get a target, and the next year they take it.
Right.
It's
Then
based
they
on
get
whether
reported out.
the growth
Right.
is determined
Yes.
based on.
It has to be across
Yeah.
at least.
And if they
that
met their
one.
target, we get yes, and if they
Yeah,
don't,
right.
we get
Then they get
no.
no.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
the target the same for each student, or is it different?
It's based solely on their scale score. So whatever their scale score is, it's based solely on that number.
So it's different for every child?
Yes.
It would be different for every child, yeah. Now, the average percentage of targeted.
So just to go back.
Go back.
Just so you can, so what that means is 60, in 2019, 58.6 of our kids met their number
Mhm.
in English, and 68% met it in math, compared
Yes.
with the state average of 39 and 42.
Yes, that's exactly what that means.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, why the difference from the first year to the second year? It's like this huge
Oh,
fall.
that's not our average.
We went from 65% hitting to 50s until the last year. Is that some quirk of the data set?
I mean, again, it's the students that we're looking at, so it's the
So we'd have
match.
to go back and look and see what they did with growth. You know, so the SBAC test has only been around
Right.
for 4 years. 5.
2014, 15, right?
Right, so that was the second year. I don't know if the growth rate numbers
Right.
have been changed over the years. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a brand new test early, you know, the year before it was a new test, and maybe they set a growth rate at 40 points instead of 65. I don't know where
Where their metrics came from.
the metrics came from.
Is the growth rate, is it really a 1 year, or do they factor in multiple years?
So if it's the same kids over years, it would be over years. Does that make sense?
So
if
if
a
Michael's
kid,
really smart, and he starts at a big number, and he's expected to go up 100 points because he's really smart, and he hits that, is he projected to go 110 the next year? Like, does it change? Or if you have somebody who's slower, do they give them slower targets in future years?
so they have a very fancy chart with vertical scale scores and the growth targets associated with those vertical scale scores.
So it's
So in other
just
words,
the
if you're
score
at
and has to be the
2,500 in
previous score.
third grade,
Yeah.
right? And really the average in third grade is 2,300. They know, there is knowledge, like the growth numbers are going to be different
My
based on
question is
what year you
acceleration.
are. Right, that I,
Yeah, well, I mean, right, like,
right.
across multiple years, do you see, are some people better learners?
Sounds like
that
you're
you-
only taking the one.
It sounds like it's a
point in time,
1 year.
there's no-
Yeah, it sounds like it's a 1 year projection.
Right, but where you are on the number scale within a grade is what's going to determine.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're at the very bottom of it, my guess is you'll have a lower target. But if you're really smart like Michael and you're in fifth grade and you're scoring like a sixth grader, your growth thing is
Just a
going
chart.
to
So here's the very fancy table that I just referenced,
Oh.
that I happen to have ready for you, just in case.
Just in case somebody
Yay.
asks you that question.
So here, what they do is they take the levels 1 through 4 and they break it further down. So now there's 8 levels, not 4 levels. So when we were talking before about level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, now we have 8 levels. So this is hard to see, I know. So the highlighted part is grade 3 student. It's waving. Oh my gosh, it's really waving. This is a grade 3 student. In ELA, they receive a scale score between 2331 and 2366. Okay? Their target is 71. So that is what they are expected to get in grade 4. If they hit that target, and they even talk in the State Department has a document out, they even talk about how hitting that target doesn't necessarily even move you this way. It doesn't even necessarily move you from level 1 to level 2. It just keeps you, sometimes it could just keep you at level 2 or level
This
1.
actually looks like you're expected to do more if you're lower.
correct.
So you're
Yes.
so we're incentivized to be focusing on the lowest performing students in this.
Yeah, because
They want
their
everybody to be
Yeah,
top.
they
I
want
mean,
to bring
because the
that-
goal in education is always to not stay this way, but to close that gap, right? So that's our goal everywhere, always, for our kids, is to always close the gap. So the numbers here are definitely going to be higher. Like, I mean, here, if you're level 8 high, it says 45/maintain. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah.
This is publicly accessible, I believe, on the State Department of Ed website, if you'd like to. And there's formulas and all sorts of,
But it's a 1 year.
yeah.
That was the narrow question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just in case that question came up, I had that ready to go. Okay, so back to our growth rate table. So that was growth rate. The average percentage of target achieved. The average percentage of target achieved is the percentage of how much of the growth target was actually achieved by the student. And in this case, the student gets credit for any growth at all that they make. Unlike the growth rate, which is either you did it or you didn't do it, any growth that the student makes, they get credit for in this.
So this is the average percentage of what our people got of their target
Yes.
goal.
Yeah,
So if their target goal was 71, you got 50, that's about whatever.
right.
I should have picked easier numbers. If your target was 100
Mike,
and you got 50, 100 points. If you were supposed to be 100, you got 50, you got 50%.
Right,
And then we take the average of everyone's.
right.
And that is.
And there we go.
So on average, we're at 78%, 78.8% of targeted goal was met by our students.
The extent to which they reach their goal, their target.
Can you get it over 100%? Because you can theoretically, but do they cut it off 100% or do they average in those? If your target's 71 and you get 85, do they give you the credit for that, or is it capped at 100?
So,
Yes or no? You met your goal and didn't.
oh,
No, no, no,
I'm
this
going
is
for growth rate.
this is the
growth
average
rate.
percentage of targeted.
So the formula to, I wrote down the formula. So you would get the credit. See, I was so ready for all of
You
you.
knew this is going to be
We knew this was going to be it.
I did, I wrote it down, I was like, just in case. So the formula to determine the percentage of the target achieved is percentage of target achieved equals the growth amount divided by the growth target. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it gets,
you get
okay.
is the short answer. But didn't mind impress you that I had the formula
Yes,
ready to go?
very nice.
We knew it was coming.
Steve has prepared me well. This is the ELA growth rate graph. This is just a graphic representation of the numbers that I was showing you. So again, you can see on the left-hand side, levels 1 through 8, as I mentioned before. The blue is the growth rate. The green is the average percentage of target achieved. So when we were looking at this, what we were noticing is that our students who were achieving at levels 1 and 2 actually were doing a really great job with their average percentage of target achieved. The ones in the middle, we were feeling like are the ones we need to really focus on.
But this is kind of what we would expect in public education. The way things work is the bottom gets a lot of support, the top tends to do well, and our middle kids sometimes can get lost, right? And that, I would say that that is a
Standard for many places.
thought process for.
The high do fine because they're high performing.
And they probably get help outside, or parents help them.
This is the same for math.
That's pretty good across the board.
Well, you didn't stop to say it, but it's really striking how much higher our numbers are than the state comparison.
Yes.
Right.
It's really striking.
Thank you for noticing that. Yes. Our
You want
numbers
to go back
are-
and show it again?
Yes, I will. I will show it again. Look.
It's 50% better.
So when I first looked at it, I thought it was our scores as compared to the whole state, and I was like, that is a travesty. So it's good to know that that's the state versus us.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
us in the
I'm
state.
sorry, I should have clarified that. The state is on the bottom and we are on top,
Yeah.
right? So we're,
That's really great, 86%.
so this is the math growth rate graph, similar to the ELA one I just showed you. And then I threw it all out there for numbers. Grades, so this is grades 4 through 6, just our school, grades 4 through 6, ELA and math across years. I know, I'm sorry, Steve, sorry, I know. So the green box now is the growth rate, I know, it's a lot. The green box is now the growth rate, so if you look at our numbers, I'll just read them. Grade 4 ELA is 61.7%, math is 65.2, grade 5 is 58.7, and then 70 for ELA and then math. Grade 6 ELA is 54.6, and grade 6 math is 69.1. So that's the growth rate. So that's a yes or no. You hit your target or you didn't. The average percentage of target achieved, grade 4 ELA is 81.9. Math is 86.5%. Grade 5 ELA is 81.6, and grade 5 math is 87.4%. Grade 6 ELA is 71.7, and math is 83.7%.
This is again striking. If you had a 5th grade intervention for math last year, you've doubled the growth rate.
Right.
It's
It's
really
amazing.
impressive.
Right. Okay. So follow up and next up. So to Dan's question earlier, some of the things that we did a little bit differently last year, there's some things that we have continued just as good practice. And there are some things last year that we tried that was a little bit new. For example, one of the things last year that I did is that I went into every single 3rd grade technology class just to show the kids what the screen looks like and how to navigate the tools and how they can expand a passage and how they're supposed to scroll and how they can highlight and how all the math tools work. I went into every single 3rd grade technology class, and then after that the teachers followed up with just some of their own question and answer. We're not going to answer any questions, boys and girls, we're going to just look at the screen. And I think that that was really helpful to just sort of develop some of that familiarity with the tools and the resources that are embedded within the site. Another thing that we did that was a little bit different last year is that there is something called interim assessment blocks, and basically what these are like little mini practice quizzes tied to different standards, different content standards for both ELA and mathematics. Last year, for the first time, we administered a couple of more full out, but then we also threw some of the questions from some of the interim assessment blocks just up on the screen for, again, teachers and students to just look at and talk through and how would you answer this, and they sort of use them as a whole class problem solving exercise. So it was sort of a nice, again, opportunity to just expose students to some of the language of some of the questions and the way that they were asked, as well as to give them practice. I think they took 2 math ones and 1 ELA one all the way through, start to finish, just so that, again, the kids got the experience of interacting with the screen and the way all the tools and everything work, and also just sort of reading the questions and building up their stamina of sitting still and focusing on their work. So we did those things that was a little bit different. Things that continue is coaching, of course, working with Columbia. We continued, last year we finished our work with ACEs, and we're continuing to sort of just look closely at our math curriculum and making sure that we're aligned with all of our assessments. And of course, grade level analysis by homeroom happens every year. My last thought is that you know this about us, but here at Beecher Road School, we really believe on focusing on the whole child. To Steve's point, this is just one data point. We share it, we look at it, we talk about it, but we really think about the whole entire child. And we do that in every day in every way that we teach. And especially in some of our district initiatives, such as our enrichment clusters and our math differentiation and our capstone project and our Genius Hour project in 5th grade. So that's something that we sort of believe in philosophically, and we want to make sure. And I was joking actually with a teacher earlier, way at the beginning of the year, how they were coming off the bus by like day 3 of school reading books. And I was like, it's day 3, and they're already like walking down the hall reading books. Like I'm banging into kids because they're so focused on their books. But that's kind of who we are at Beecher, and we love that. And the other thing that actually our interventionist pointed out to me is that if you look at Beecher Road School over time, if you look at Amity Middle School Bethany and even the high school SAT scores, our students, they leave us and they go off into the middle school and into the high school, and overall they're performing really, really well across the state at both the middle school and the high school level. So that's something else that, they get their foundation here at Beecher, they go on to middle and high school, and they continue to do really, really well. So it's something else that we sort of take pride in. Any last questions?
One quick. The thing that jumped out to me overall was math versus ELA. And I heard you say that the ACEs was the big work we did this summer to try to, change curriculum and things like that. And do you expect that that's going to move the needle on, or do you think that it's going to take like a few years of that work to continue to build the math curriculum up so that we can bring them on par with each other? Because you kind of see we're like at the 12% with our ELA, but we're much more than 12% in our math.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So I think again, every cohort is different, of course, so scores could look very different next year. I will say that last year we finished grade K and grade 5. So now this year's first graders got the benefit of some of that curriculum work in kindergarten, and they will have already, and first grade has already finished it. So essentially our current kindergarteners will have the benefit of having a full and complete aligned curriculum starting now in kindergarten. So
we'll be looking there.
Yeah, look there.
Look there, and at 5th grade too, you said, right?
Right, and 5th grade just finished theirs last year. So there's always work to be done. Curriculum documents are living and breathing, and they take a lot of work to sort of continue to look. And even some of the grade levels that have been done for a year or two are now going back, and they're saying, oh, hey, we think we need more rigor here, or this unit needs some more resources, or we're not sure about this assessment, we'd like to tweak it and make it different. So that work sort of is ongoing, but in terms of having full, complete curriculum, we are now done with all grade levels K-5. 6th grade has a math resource textbook, which that they utilize, and they had curriculum work several years ago.
Do you know how far off we are from like the #1 school in our district? Like what do their scores look like overall? Just roughly a week.
Why, look at that. I have that slide too.
Oh, nice.
Nice, 3 for 30.
It's like I know all of you. It's like such a small percentage point. So here we are, 83.3. Well, that's Region 5. Cheshire is 82.6, and we're 80.1. So we're super close for ELA. And for math, 74.1, and we're separated, Guilford is 77.6, or 79.7 for Region 5. So it's a couple percentage points.
It's a couple of kids.
It's a couple of kids. So to the point that Steve made earlier,
It's like the press games.
like,
Someone could have an off day, and that one person having an off day could throw things off.
But Amity was #1 on both of them. I think we should know.
right.
Yeah.
Region 5 was up there, yeah.
Yeah. Both on
But why
#1
would
on
it be
both.
in there if they wouldn't have K through 6?
Because they do K,
So that's just a comparison of 7 through 12 to other 7 through 12? Or is it,
it's just the district reference group, because they do 8th grade testing. So they're lumped in with us even though we're not testing with 8th graders. We've talked about this before, how it doesn't really make sense to lump us in with a district that doesn't have
Right.
3 through 6.
So it's not a fair,
That's why I kind of didn't count them.
right? It's not, that's why.
That's why I kind of didn't count Region 5 and I looked at Cheshire, because Cheshire is, makes a little bit more sense to compare us to Cheshire, because Cheshire is the one right below Region 5.
So we really should be averaging Region 5 and Woodbridge and then reporting out against Cheshire, right? Like, because Cheshire has all 12 grades, and not that we should do that, but I'm just saying, like, if one wanted to.
Right.
Close. Yes.
So Cheshire
It
is
doesn't even matter.
82.6 and we're 80 for ELA, and for math, Guilford is 77.6 and we're 74.1.
But again, if you were to average Region 5 and us, then we'd be rated 77.1.
Right. If we could do it that way.
So I want to thank you for a great presentation. I think this is the least number of questions that we've had, and you have had slides and paperwork for all of the questions. So we are clearly moving in the right direction.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the data teams? Like, how do they function?
The school-wide data?
Yeah, the school-wide data teams. How they function? What kind of data are they reviewing? How are they reporting out?
Oh, sure.
What does that look like?
So the school-wide data team has really been getting going over the last few years. It's comprised mostly of our intervention teachers, our curriculum folks, language arts and math, and administrators at the moment. We'd like to integrate classroom teachers into it and special education teachers into it, but we haven't managed to find the time that is convenient for all. And basically, we started the year by, in the past, let me say what we've done in the past, and then I'll say what we're doing this year. In the past, what we've done is we've tried to meet three times a year at a minimum, more if we can, based around when we give our big assessments. So we often assess students fall, winter, spring. So we would meet after most of our fall assessments were done, after most of our winter assessments were done, and after most of our spring assessments were done. What we found doing that is that there was too much to sift through, because we were looking at reading, we were looking at writing, we were looking at math, we were looking at unit assessments. There was too much for us to sort of sift through. So this year we decided to shift, try to meet more regularly. And this year we started by looking at our Smarter Balance data. And because we have access to the school data at a granular level, we were able to sort of click in, like those students that you saw that were in that red, yellow, green, blue, we can click into that data and see who are those kids who are landing in ELA, who they are, what class they're in, see if they were the same or different from the math kids. So we kind of started by taking a broad scope view of Smarter Balance data and looking at that and thinking about sort of how that might impact our school year and on our work moving forward. Since then, unfortunately, I actually missed the last meeting because I was offsite at a training, but they spent some time focusing in on math, I know, and they were talking specifically about math in the primary grades because they started looking a little bit at some of our intervention data and our students who are receiving our supports from our interventionists. And one of the things that they were starting to notice is sort of how those numbers were playing out and who those kids were and what that work needed to be moving forward. So they started looking a little bit more closely at sort of math intervention data as they're getting done with some of our initial math assessments. We're going to meet throughout the year, and I think that we're meeting, I want to say, every other week. And I think that as those meetings continue, the data we look at might depend upon sort of how things are going in the classroom. Like all of our universal screening assessment is now complete, our STAR assessments. So our next meeting, our plan is to sort of look at that and compare that information to the students who completed their Smarter Balance and see again if there's any names that are matching up that we maybe need to take a look at.
I know what STAR is, just to make sure that you know what the STAR testing is.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. All right. I just sometimes we say things.
And then as the year continues, we'll spend time just sort of looking at a mixture of our school-wide data like STAR and our sort of granular unit assessment data for different grade levels and our computational fluency assessments and our teachers' college reading and writing assessments. Does that help? Did I answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Again, thank you. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to see that our growth rate is really starting to look a lot better, which is great. Okay. That's it for superintendent's report.
That was it.
Nothing
Yep.
else? Okay. There is a agenda item that just shows the upcoming meeting presentations, just to kind of keep people abreast of sort of what we have on the agenda for the next few meetings. So our next meeting in November is going to be curriculum committee discussion.
Yes,
Um,
and if anyone has anything that they would like included in the overview, if they could let me know, that'd be great. And we'll review that, those requests and the curriculum committee's report at our next curriculum committee.
Okay. Anything else from curriculum committee? Is that, no, you're down further on the agenda, sorry.
Yeah.
Facilities committee.
Facilities committee, yes. Quick thank you to Alec, thank you for rain, why I phoned in during this one. Few things from Vito's report, as Neiman said, in Selm Phase 1 HVAC upgrades, decided to go on to, the second part of the upgrades, which I think is great. The South School pole lights are under repair. We found some bees nests, some issues with them, but they should be corrected soon. 11-19, there'll be some radon testing done, positive results last year, expect the same this year.
Positive results meaning good, not positive results.
Correct, yes, yes.
Just clarify.
Great results, yes, thank you.
Good results.
Good results, yes, thank you for clarifying. The microturbine testing for long-term power outages is underway, it's going well. And again, there's some ongoing issues that should be addressed. Some plants and moisture retaining materials, items near the unit ventilators, drainage issues, some tree issues, which we discussed as probably bringing into this year's approved capital plan to address.
Any questions? You got something else?
No, just there's some discussions over the K-wing roofs and heeding to the town's idea of lumping some larger projects together in 3 years out into the capital budget plan. So I think we're going to take that lead on that. But we also made known that there is some risk associated with that. Right now, there's much needed repair on the K-wing roof, and extending that roof might be problematic. There is going to be a test done to do a thermal scan of that roof to see the consequences of prolonging the replacement of that roof. And then, again, we're going to proceed probably with some trees erosion control that was approved during last year's budget.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay. Finance committee.
Capital budget request. So we have on the table to approve right now a request of $27,000 for 2021. And that $27,000 includes nothing for facilities or for grounds projects. That $27,000 is for technology infrastructure, and $22,000 of which is for cybersecurity measures, basically data backup. Yeah. We tried to keep in mind the economic situation of the town, and so we are. What we did was we decided to push off projects for 3 years. At which time we have learned that the town would be retiring some of its debt and would be in a position to replace some of its debt. So, as Jeff was saying, that there is some risk in postponing some of these projects. There is a lot that we could fix around the school. Any of you who had done the walkthrough could see that there are plenty of projects that we really should be taking care of. But the risk that we discussed at the facilities committee meeting we thought would be manageable. The two areas being the K-wing roof that Jeff talked about and the asphalt paving from a trip hazard liability perspective. There are steps that we're taking to mitigate in the interim some of this risk in terms of the K-wing roof. And the hope is that perhaps we might receive funds from the STEEP grant to address some of the asphalt issues. So hopefully we will not have to go to the town to ask for further funds. But for now, what we're showing is 27,000 just for technology infrastructure. Are we going to address the capital budget and more?
Well, we should move it, discuss it, and then vote on it.
Okay, so to move it, do I just?
Yeah, just read the motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the 2020-2021 capital budget as presented by administration.
Second.
I second that.
All right, discussion.
So even though it says 5, we're approving 2021. And I'm looking at this document here, it's like yellow.
So
head.
really, so the only thing that gets requested is 21. We do a 5-year, or
Just so we
actually
know.
6-year, just to show the town
Yeah.
kind of where we're headed
Format.
and what we put off, and just to
Understood.
kind of get a sense, and we
Just
try to
wanted to
keep
make
that up to date.
Right.
Any other comments, Al?
Excuse me, I think Joyce and Jeff had really captured the essence of conversations. It's, again, same story, the board bringing its due diligence forward as guardians and stewards of the land. We're still identifying the needs, but there's a respectful awareness to the town's funding.
Okay. Any further questions for Joyce or Al on this? All those in favor of presenting the capital budget as approved? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. What else, Joyce?
All right, so I think we have also something on ESG. So the past 2 years, we have entered into an arrangement with ESG, and I forget exactly what it stands for, Energy Savings Group, or?
Well, that's, ESG is the company,
I
the
know
company
the
that
name
did
of
the
the group,
project.
but I forget what the acronym stands for. But basically, it is a minimum requirement of energy savings that we should reap. And if we do not, then they would pay us. So it's basically a guarantee. So we pay about $10,000 a year to enter into this arrangement with this performance contractor. And the question for us is whether this year, which would be the 3rd year, whether we should enter into the same arrangement. It would be $10,400 this year. Initially, when we took a look at it, we thought, you know what, we pay about $10,000, and every year they come back, they write the report, and the report that they write shows that they don't need to pay us anything because we've met the minimum guaranteed level of savings. But having said that, at the facilities committee meeting, there was discussion about, well, at about 5 years, that's the tipping point where systems begin to be a lot less efficient. And so we can begin to see decline. And so having 1 more year's worth as a data point would be helpful for us to make a more informed decision. So the question for us as a board is whether we should continue with ESG for 1 more year. And it's one of those arrangements where you can't go out and then go back in. It's once you're out, you're out. So it's a decision that, if we want to be out, then we wouldn't have the ability to re-enter.
So just to, when we did this project, the global project, the whole intent of the sort of building project was to see energy savings. And so the way the contract was originally drawn up, if we didn't see those savings, they were guaranteed by ESG, which was the company that did it. So we were guaranteed we would save this much in heating oil, this much in gas, this much in electricity, by all of these performance improvement measures. And the way to determine whether or not that guarantee was met is to pay $10,000 a year to have an audit done so that they come back and tell us, yes, you met the milestones, or no, you didn't. And if you didn't meet the savings that we guaranteed in the original project, you would get a check for the difference. So I think, the question really is, so we've done it for 2 years,
And every year, so I was the one who raised the question during the facilities meeting.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the information that they provided for the first 2 years, every year we slip in our energy savings. And historically, if you look across the state with performance contractors and these types of agreements, there are 20-year agreements, 15-year agreements, and around the 5th year, they start running negative. I know specifically of another town in Connecticut that receives a $50,000 check every year from their ESCO provider because they started to fail to meet their performance requirements. And our project is trending down and looks like around the 5-year mark, we will not be meeting our energy savings. So the whole point of an ESCO contract is that over the life of the equipment pays for itself in energy savings.
Sure.
That's by being a net zero financial engagement. So that's why you have this performance guarantee, because if not, then you paid for a bunch of equipment that, you know. So right now we're trending that we're not going to meet that 20-year lifetime savings, and it looks like we're going to start having additional energy cost and the debt service for the project as well. So I brought up possibly extending one more year to get one more data point. We also have the benefit of vsELA as our consultant to look at the way, and the report that ESG writes for us is bound by a specific agency, the IMVP, and so they can't fudge the numbers too much. They are the fox watching the henhouse. However, they can only go so far with that because there is a standard in which they must conduct it to, and it must be certified by a professional engineer. So if it is fudged too much and vsELA was to say that, hey, I think you're going too far, there's a professional that is liable for that. So that, you know, it's a caged fox watching the henhouse. So it's $10,000. The savings was about $30,000. So if we look at it in one way, we're only netting $20,000 of our savings if we continue to do the M&B for one more year, and it gives us one more year to really investigate where we're going to be. And like Joyce said, once we're out, we can't get back in.
Comments?
So do we put this to a vote, or how does it proceed?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to make a motion to, continue for another year, if that's
Yeah.
the motion you want to
So
make.
I would like to make that motion. I think it's a good motion to, continue this for one more year, engage vsELA into looking into it. Well, I'll just say, I'll simplify that motion. I think we should extend for one more year.
Second that.
Okay. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor of extending for another year? Any opposed? Okay, awesome, thank you. Anything else?
We will be talking later about the early retirement packages, and I think one thing to note is that this year it has been extended to not to go beyond just teachers. It also is.
Well, I think we have to discuss it.
Oh.
We haven't even discussed
Oh.
that, and then we bring it back out
Oh,
and
I see.
discuss it
Okay.
in
All
executive.
right.
So that we have to discuss those things in executive session,
Right.
and then we come back into public session
Okay.
afterwards.
And then the student accident insurance issue has come up at the last finance committee meeting, where a couple of weeks ago, families received an advertisement from an insurance vendor that was selling insurance that was optional for student accidents. And the concern that some members had was that it looked like the district was endorsing encouraging this kind of insurance coverage, and perhaps endorsing this particular vendor who people didn't really know about. So CABE and our board council had been consulted with, and it does seem to be the case that there are several districts that do provide information, such as the information that we had sent out, but it's not a requirement. And so the finance committee had decided, just given the optics of this, we would no longer send out this kind of information to parents.
So that requires a board vote.
Oh, does it require a vote?
But I mean, if the finance committee is changing the way we, I mean, I don't,
Oh, I don't know, okay.
There's no policy to do it,
yeah.
so they said they were just going to put it on the website versus sending it
So do we
home.
need to make a motion? No.
We'll find out afterwards. We can vote on it at the next meeting. It's already out for this year, so
Yeah.
this would be for next year.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And I think those are the major highlights.
Thank you.
Well, one question. Cybersecurity at whether our cybersecurity practices are in line with the recommendations from CABE?
It's funny that you should ask. So James Crawford, who's standing right there, has spent a lot of time thinking and looking into these issues. And I don't know if you've
You want to comment?
okay, but you have.
Yeah. So I
Put you
haven't
right on the spot.
Yeah, why not? I was literally just about to sneak out of here. Perfect timing. So I haven't looked at CABE in particular, but I have looked at, we belong to multiple organizations, one being a consortium of school networks, another being the Multi-State Information and Sharing Center, and they're a group that looks at the cybersecurity for states, local towns and governments, tribal territories, and K-12 schools. So I've gone off their recommendations and gone to webinars and sessions provided by them. So a lot of my recommendations are based on what I've heard from them. They do the National Institute of NIST, I'm forgetting the S for it, National Institute of Something in Technology, Standards in Technology. And so they have a NIST framework on cybersecurity. So I've been looking at aligning with that as well.
Thanks.
Anything else? Or I think
Okay, curriculum committee.
Curriculum committee met on October 17th. The minutes from that meeting are in e-meeting. And we had two presentations. One, Mrs. Merrill presented on the summer programs, gave us an update about what was going on here at Beecher during the summer. And then Mrs. Sherman gave us a presentation on the summer curriculum work that teachers did in various curriculum areas. So that's about it. Our next meeting is November 21st at 4:30. I invite all board members to come to that meeting, especially if you're a new board meeting. There'll be a presentation on special education and the requirements that we have to meet, which may have budget implications. So having a really clear idea about what we need to do and what we do here will be important for future decision making. So I invite everybody to come to that meeting.
Policy committee.
We met on October 8th, and also I believe the minutes should be in the e-meeting. We reviewed 3 policies. One of them we did bring for 30-day review for today. The other 2 are still tabled for now, although the first policy was regarding our security measures and looking at SRO versus an armed security guard, and this was very, very superficial, not superficial, but preliminary conversation. So we weren't intending on passing any, talking about anything or suggesting anything necessarily. So it's just opening that up, knowing that budget's coming up and trying to think about what our options are and all that. So that discussion will continue. We also discussed policy regarding students, and there's some language concerns and whatnot that we will be also tabling for further conversation. And I think we are going to put policy on hold since Superintendent Gilbert has such a big part in that, so we will wait until probably January to have conversation.
Do we get this out?
Sure, should we do that now?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure, so we have some policies that have been sitting for 30-day review. I move that we adopt policies 3524.1, hazardous material in school, pesticide management plan, 5112, ages of attendance, 5141, student health services, and 5141.3, health assessments and immunizations as revised.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm sorry, can you just clarify what the changes are with the health assessment implementation?
I think they're in, do you have a
I'm
packet?
looking at it now. Is there a quick synopsis?
Oh, sure. I'll have to remind myself because that's not what we reviewed recently. That was a while back.
Pre-K and or kindergarten was added in paragraph on the first page, page 2, bottom. And then also the words, a chronic disease assessment shall be included but not limited to asthma on the item 1 on the next page. It's all indicated in red.
Right, so anything in red is the addition.
like me, do you see it in red on that, or is it?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay, all right, I just wasn't sure it
There's
was
a
color. Any other questions, or?
Again, this was all driven by statute changes at the state level requiring stuff to be added.
Right, they've suggested.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes. Okay. CABE, anything else for policy?
No, I think that's good.
CABE liaison report?
CABE CAPS convention coming up. Anyone who hasn't, hopefully everyone has already signed up that's planning on going. That should be an interesting conference. It's a little last minute, but the legal issues workshop is tomorrow. I don't know if anyone signed up for that. That's everyone here at the table could possibly attend that.
Is there a webinar for that one?
I don't think that, no, that one's not a webinar. That one's an in-person training. It's tomorrow. I think I had mentioned it last time as well, but I wasn't sure if anyone was able to sign up for that. But they do have other things throughout the year for legal issues, which is good. The one I'd strongly suggest some folks attend is the new board member orientation and leadership conference. So whether you're a new member or an old member, there's breakout groups and whatnot that can be learned. Very interesting. And that is Tuesday, December 10th. So there's a little bit of time to sign up for that, but.
Wait, is that only a one-day thing?
That one is a one day. It's a Tuesday and it's all day. They do provide food, so at least you won't starve.
So it might be different from the one that I attended, which was almost 4 days.
Yes, yeah, this is a little different, yeah, yeah.
All right. Any new business? And we are going to go into executive session, public comment, sorry. Anyone sign up for public comment? Since I have the sheet, no. All right. Then we're going to go into executive session. There will be a brief public session afterwards. So you're welcome to come back, but you don't have to. So we'll pause.
I need a motion.
I make a motion that we move into executive session.
So, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.